Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We're going to give everybody some time to kind of trickle in, and we'll get into create new product. In the meantime, if you want to hit up the chat box, let me know where you're joining from. I'd love to know, or let me know if we've done a demo together. I love when you guys join and I already know who you are. Hi, everybody. Miami. Oh, Miami sounds luxurious right now. It's getting cold. Is it just beautiful down there? How have you guys been throughout the storm? Everything going on. St. Louis. Oh, I love it. I love all these beautiful cities. Detroit. Hey. Simone, Marisha, and Elizabeth. Welcome. Hi, guys. To people just joining, we're going to give it a few minutes, and then we'll get started soon. I'll give it one more minute, okay? And then we'll jump right into it. Hi, Virginia. Hey, Birney. Birney, I know. How's it going? Alrighty. Okay, guys, so with any questions, I'm good, thank you. Hey, South Africa, welcome. We will get started now. Any questions? Don't put them here in the chat, put them in the Q&A, which is right here, okay? And then at the end, I'll go over all of your questions, okay? Alrighty, so here we are. Today we're gonna go over building custom shapes or custom furniture with the Create New Product tool in Foyr Neo. That's me. Be sure to give us a follow on our LinkedIn, definitely our Instagram page. If you're using Foyr already and creating renderings, post them on your sign page, tag us. We love to share the work that our interior designers are doing on our stories and promote you guys. So make sure that you tag us so that we know it's there. And this is our website. If you're new and want to sign up, you can head here and try our 14-day free trial. Okay, so the takeaways from this webinar, we're going to go into Create New Product right away, and I'm going to show you how to build a few different things. This is by no means the complete list of what you can do with this tool, but it'll show you a good sampling of the tools and how they're used. So we're going to go into custom built-ins. I'm going to show you how to create kitchen backsplash that cuts around, say, a window or a hood for above a range, different things like that. How to use the tool to create custom kitchen cabinetry, and then also how to create curved items like a curved wall or a cabinet. Then we'll very quickly go into applying textures to create dimension and depth in your custom builds. This is, I would say, a little bit of a pro tip that I've learned as I've used the software, that how you use certain paint applications can create a nicer effect in the render. So we'll quickly go over that. And there is a little downloadable cheat sheet that I made for you guys that has all of the tools and what each tool does. One of the things that I learned while using this software is I struggled a little bit until I really understood the functionality of each tool. Once you have that under your belt, you can think your way through pretty much any build. So hopefully that'll be a good resource for you guys. And then, like I said, any questions, add them to the Q&A and I'll get to them at the end. Alrighty, let's head out of here. I want to quickly show you, so here's the little cheat sheet right here. Pen tool, all of these tools that we'll be going over today with a little explanation. So if that looks like it might help you, go ahead and I think Ryan is going to provide you guys with a link for that by the end of the webinar in the chat box. In the meantime, let me show you some examples of things I'm going to show you how to build. So we'll start all the way over here. So you'll notice this backsplash goes just under the cabinet here and then straight up to the top of the cabinet and then cuts around here. I'm going to show you how to create that and create new product. And then I just dragged and dropped my tile. This is another example where it comes below the cabinet and then cuts down around the window, and then this goes all the way up to the wall. These kitchen cabinets themselves, the base here and on the other side as well, was created in Create New Product, and then I placed these cabinet shutters, which are available in the catalog, I'll show you where to find them, over top to give the appearance of not only a toe kick, but to make it easier to have like a nice seamless display of the cabinetry, if that makes sense. Alrighty, the built-ins we're gonna go over first. So this is a mantle that was dragged and dropped from the catalog. I changed the texture. I realized this is some custom artwork that I realize now looks like a bunch of naked people, but it's actually men in trench coats. Maybe not the best option, not the best choice here. But I wanted to have built-ins that cut right around the base of this fireplace here. Couldn't find it in the catalog to perfectly fit this mantle, so I just built them. So I'm going to show you how I did that. This is a console table from Crate and Barrel. And again, built it, created, used my pen tool to create these lines and then applied different paint colors here. I realize now, of course, that I made a mistake and didn't put the right paint color here, but this entire structure was built in Create New Product to scale to size. Okay, and lastly, this custom kitchen island was also very quickly and simply made in Create New Product. So we'll go over, that's just a little sampling of all the things that you can do here. Alrighty, let me pull up Editor and we're going to jump right into it. So let's first talk about those built-ins. So from 3D mode, that's where you're going to access Create New Product by selecting here. Your view will remain the same, but the tools available to you are going to change. So now you'll notice that just like that cheat sheet that I showed you earlier, it goes right in order for you. Pen tools are first option, but that's not where we're going to start. So I'm going to kind of talk you through it as we go. The first thing that you want to do for these built-ins, for example, you want to build out the outer, broader frame, right? And you do that using one of the ready-made tools. And those are either the rectangle tool or the circle tool. That's it. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And these tools can be drawn out on the floor, the wall, or the ceiling. So we're not going to build something on top of a sofa. We could build it out on the floor, and then when we navigate back into 3D mode, we'll simply put it into free movement and lift it onto the sofa, for example. For now, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click into the corner of my wall. This is called line snapping. So my cursor is snapping me into that corner for me, which is really helpful. I'm clicking once. I'm not holding down the cursor on my mouse. Definitely use a mouse if you're not already. And then I'm dragging this out. And again, it's going to help by snapping me onto the floor and snapping me into this right-hand corner. I'm going to click again. Just going to orbit my screen to the side here so you can see. It's just like a thin piece of paper, but this is mapping out the outer edge of my bookshelf. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this some depth. And that tool is push-pull. Push-pull gives your item depth, height, and it also allows you to resize things. This is a tool you're going to be using constantly. So when I click on that, once I move on to the item that I'm creating, it's going to highlight blue. And as we start to define the different areas of our space, that will create different planes that we can manipulate with push-pull. This will probably make more sense as we go through it. So I'm clicking once, not holding down my cursor, and I'm moving out my mouse. One thing that's important, I'm just going to click escape for a second. Avoid looking straight on at something and then trying to pull it either away from you or towards you. You'll notice anytime I use push-pull, I orbit my screen to the side. What might happen if you're looking straight on, if you try and pull it towards you, it may end up pushing it away. So look at it from the side, and that way you're moving your mouse left to right and not up and down. You can, as this little window, this dimension box pops up, you can just start typing and enter a dimension. So let's say I want it to be 1 foot 3 inches deep. I would simply type that in, click enter, and it'll set it to that dimension for me. Okay. We're going to be using this nonstop, so you'll get more familiar with it. Okay, so now that we have the outer frame, let's say I want to create a cavity here for maybe a television. I want bookshelves on either side of that, and then maybe some drawers or cabinets down below. I'm going to use the pen tool to start to map out those different areas. So the pen tool, when you select it, it'll look like this, just draws me straight lines. It's going to tell me when I'm on my edge, and also a really handy tool is that it'll tell me and snap me into place when I'm on my midpoint, so you don't have to measure that on any of these lines. I'm going to start a bit lower. Click, drag out my mouse. I'm not holding down my cursor, and then I click again. And you'll notice that the edges are turning blue to let me know that I'm on them. If you get this sticky key situation, just click the escape key on your keyboard to get out of it. Okay. Now I want to make sure that my bookshelves are coming out evenly, right, from the left and right wall. So I'm going to use my ruler tool, which is down at the bottom here. I'm going to click on this left edge. It'll highlight blue for me, and I'm just going to move out. And I can, again, set it to a specific dimension. We'll just say 4 feet for now, and then I can do this as well. So this is a nice dotted line guide for me, which now I can draw my pen tool over top of, and it's going to tell me I'm on my ruler and also snap me into place. So I'm going to go straight down. We'll make these like drawers over here, and then we'll do something fun, maybe like a little electric fireplace or something. Okay, I'm going to draw this down. Okay, so now we've defined some different edges. Let me show you what I was talking about earlier with push-pull. And now as I hover my cursor, these are separate planes that I can push, pull, and manipulate. Okay, but before we go into that, the next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to find my midpoint here. I think I'm going to make these drawers, click the escape key, find my midpoint, click, and click, super easy. Okay. Now what I want to do is define the borders around my bookshelf and maybe define some trim for my drawers. The tool that creates borders is Offset. So when I click on this bookshelf and I just move my mouse out, again, I'm not holding down my cursor. You'll notice there's a seam here. We just click once. I move that out, and then that dimension that's popping up is showing me how many inches from the border I am. So I can set this, or I can just eyeball it and pull this out. One thing, okay, and then I can just set it again here. Here we go. So now this is actually kind of starting to look like something, right? When I go down here to my drawers, I'm going to click and do the same thing, but I'm going to do it again to start to make this look like a little drawer. And this will create, I forgot the number I did, we'll say it was 3. This will create whatever shape it's working within. So it doesn't have to be a rectangle. It could be an arch, it could be a completely irregular shape. If you click, it will mimic that shape perfectly and tell you how many inches from the border you are. All right. Okay, so for time's sake, we probably won't do this full build because we have so many other things to show you. But there, I'll just put that quickly. All righty. So now I might also use Offset to define over here. And then I can push this in and create like a little cavity for my television. But what I really want to show you, I'm going to zoom in, is how to create the appearance of shelves, right? So we're going to define these using our rectangle tool, and we'll use our ruler tool to make sure that they're evenly spaced or spaced however we want them to be. And then we're going to use push-pull to push in the areas where we need there to be a cavity. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm going to grab my ruler tool here. I'm going to click at the top of this border, and then I'm just going to move it down. Let's just say it comes down 1 foot and our shelves are 3 inches thick. Click that and enter, and then this creating a nice little guide for me. And I'm just going to do 2 here so that we don't waste too much time on one thing. Alrighty, so now because I'm essentially creating a long rectangle, I can use the rectangle tool. You could also use the pen tool for this because it's 2 straight lines, but the rectangle tool will be faster. So I'm going to select the rectangle. It's going to snap me right onto that ruler, and then I'm just going to bring it down and it's going to snap onto that dotted line for me as well. Click and click. Alrighty. I'm clicking the escape key to get out of that tool. And now I'm once again orbiting my screen to the side because now I'm going to use push-pull. These are separate planes, and I'm going to click and push in that where I would like there to be a cavity. So I pushed all the way through, and that's slicing it away and exposing the wall behind. You have that option, or you can push it back. I think we said it was 1'3", so I could push it back 1'2" to leave 1 inch of backing, and then I can apply a texture here. So you have different options depending on what you'd like to do. Okay. So you'll notice that creating this, we started with our rectangle tool. We defined our broader spaces using our pen tool just with some straight lines, right? We used our ruler tool as needed to make sure that things dimensionally were correct. We used offset to add in borders and the appearance of trim. And then we use push-pull again to create cavities. So one last thing I want to show you here is I'm going to zoom into this little drawer here. If we were to click done and just go back into 3D and start applying colors or some kind of paint or whatnot to these drawers, because everything is completely flat right now, even though there are lines here, it would just wash out completely. You wouldn't see any definition. So use push-pull to create some definition. You might click on this and bring it out a tad. You might move this in a bit or move this out a bit. And what's so nice is that you have the ability to manipulate each one of these. So I'll just do this one as an example, and then I'm going to show you what I would recommend for applying paint. So you can already tell that there's a bit of dimension here where there isn't on this one, right? So I'm going to click the escape key. Let's go click on done. Now we're immediately back in 3D mode. And let me show you what I'd recommend here. So this isn't necessary, but let's say we apply like a dark navy blue here. I'm going to drag and drop it to the outer kind of pane of this drawer. But you'll notice that all of these planes are separate, and I can apply different textures to all of them. What I would recommend if you're applying a paint like this is whatever color you're using, go a few shades darker. In this case, I'm just going to use like a charcoal black. I have like a favorite. This one is my favorite color, my favorite black paint. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to apply it to the inside here. And the reason that I'm doing this is when this renders, because I've gone darker, in this case I've used black because it's such a dark navy blue, but it's going to create a greater level of like dimension because it's going to mimic shadow by going darker on these shades. I hope that what I'm saying is making sense for you guys, but this is kind of like a nice way of really making your build super realistic. It's just by adding these little edges here. Okay. And you can see the effect that that has already without even taking a render. Then for the rest of that build, what I did was I simply went into my catalog, found hardware, dragged and dropped it, resized it once, applied the textures that I wanted, and then I just cloned it and moved it around to the different areas. Placed all of my, lighting. This back here, by the way, is not created in Create New Product. I just found a wall panel from the catalog and put it up against the back wall. So don't feel like you have to draw all of those lines. You don't have to. It was this wall panel right here. I tucked it back there, and then I just applied the same paint color to give like a nice little backing to that bookshelf. And then all of those staging items that you see, the recessed lighting, all of that is in the catalog for you to drag and drop and have fun with as you like, okay? So I look at these drawers now, and I built this months and months ago, and I go, what's like amateur hour, right? Because there's so much more you can do by adding another border on the inside and then playing with that dimension, adding that shading. So the more that you play around with the software, the more you learn and grow with it, just like I have, as you can see, there's a difference here, right? So this is what I would recommend. Okay. Let me know if there's any questions about this. We'll get to them at the end. In the meantime, let's jump into the next thing that we're going to discuss, which is the backsplash and kitchen cabinet. Okay. So backsplash, super easy. Let's grab a window from the catalog. I'll use this one, and we'll build it here. Alrighty, so one also important thing, as you're building different shapes and create new products, you'll notice if I click on this wall, for example, and then select create new product, I'm creating an entirely new product. I am not editing this existing project. If I click done, if I want to edit something about this, I have to select it, and then it's going to give me the option to modify. Then when I click on modify, now I'm only modifying this. So you'll notice when I went back in after clicking modify, my environment is gone, but sometimes you need to see the environment, right? So you can just click Unhide Environment up here. It'll bring all of that back for you so that you can see the space that you're working in. Depends on, sometimes it's useful to have it hidden away, sometimes you need it, okay? So I'll click done again, and we'll focus over here. I'm going to tuck this out of the way for now. Alrighty, so first things first, let's say we have like a U-shaped kitchen here, and you want to, rather than dragging and dropping base units from the catalog and trying to piece them together, I'll show you an easier way. So we're going to start on the floor, and again, we're going to grab our rectangle tool, and we're going to build out the outer frame of our cabinet. This time on the floor rather than the wall, I'm going to click. It's going to snap me into the other wall, drag this out. I can enter specific dimensions if I need to, and then just click again. Now I can use my ruler tool to mark how far out the depth of my base unit. I'll just use that for now. We'll say 2.5 all around. And then this is going to act as a nice guide. And then we're going to grab our rectangle tool and just define this. So what I'm defining, when I grab my rectangle tool, it's going to snap me onto that ruler. I'm going to click and click again. This is saying, hey, these need to be two separate areas because this is going to be the base unit and this is going to just be open walking area, right? So now we're going to use push pull again, because remember it gives us depth, height, and allows us to resize. I'm going to click on that, two separate planes, click on this guy and just bring it on up. And now we have the kind of frame for our U-shaped kitchen design. So quickly, let's click done. We'll head back into 3D, and I want to show you how we're going to hide this away. So in the texture catalog, there's a very handy tool called invisible material. I know some of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, if you type in invisible, you'll find it here. Drag and drop it. Because we've defined this as its own plane, it will only apply to the floor. And even though you can see this little line here indicating that that's where it is, when you take a render, none of that will show. Invisible materials are a really handy tool for a lot of different things. This is just one of them. So now in the catalog, you can search for base units and for wall units. And if you find what you need, fantastic. If you want to customize, here's what you should search for, because now we're going to the cabinet, the doors basically over top, right? You're going to search for cabinet shutter, click enter, and then as we scroll down, you'll see that there's a number of options, and this is literally just the doors and the drawers. There's tons of options for those of you that are US based. These kitchens that I showed you earlier were created entirely using these cabinet shutters, and they match up perfectly with the Hampton Bay Designer Series on available at Home Depot. So you can design an entire kitchen using these cabinet shutters and have them match that style. Okay, so I'm just going to fit that on. You can, of course, resize this, apply paint color, and apply your own hardware from the catalog. If you're going for a more modern look, you can use the pen tool to just create very modern, like for the drawers that you simply push and they open. If you were going for that, you would use the pen tool to create those lines, and then you could push pull them out. Let's click on this once more and go into modify, and I'll show you how to create a cavity for a drop-in sink. So we have a ton of drop-in sinks in the catalog, but if you were to drop it onto this right now, the counter, so to speak, would cut right through it, right? So we're just going to look down here. We'll say that our sink is here, and I'm going to grab the rectangle tool again. I'm going to click, move it out. I can enter the specific dimensions of the sink if I need to. Click again, and then grab, push, pull, and push this down to create the cavity for that sink to fit in without having any issues there. I'll click done, and then I can always find a drop-in sink to place and resize as needed. Oh, I'll do that. Click, put it into free movement so that I can lift it up. And then I would just rotate it into place. And then you don't have that problem, okay? Alrighty, let's build our backsplash around this window. So it's a new product. I'm just going to click on the wall, click on create new product again. And here we are, and you guessed it, we are using the rectangle tool again. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the wall, and I'm just going to draw straight across. I'm going to cover that window, and I'm just going to cover the area where I need my backsplash to exist. And now what I'm going to do is use push pull. Again, I'm turning to the side, and I'm just going to give this a little bit of depth. We'll just say an inch. The reason for this, you see I totally missed the corner here, and that's okay. What's important is that when you're working with these tools, always make sure that you give your items, even if they're meant to be flat, a little bit of depth just to start, or a little bit of height if you're creating like a custom floor. Foyr Neo, I know you know what I'm talking about, with like a multi-level house. You want to do that because it creates these edges. And these edges now become separate planes that you can manipulate. So that's what I was talking about earlier when I said that you can also use push-pull to resize, because now I can click on this and just pull it out. So it didn't matter that I wasn't exact with getting that the first time, because I can just manipulate the length right here. This is also really, really important, and I'll try and show you guys an example. Actually, I can show you an example right here. When you go into 3D mode, back into 3D mode, you can select any of these products that you've built and you can resize them. But if they have a cavity, like for the drop-in sink or the cavity that we're about to create for this window, when you resize the entire product that you've built, it's going to also stretch that, and maybe to a point where it doesn't work for you anymore. So rather than resizing in 3D mode, it's actually easier to resize using push-pull and create new products, because you have the ability to just lengthen this side or just lengthen that side and not the whole item, okay? I'm just going to double click now. Let me center myself here. And we are going to use the pen tool, and I'm just going to trace around. I'm going to click on my edge, click again at the corner, and again, and then back on the edge. It's going to highlight blue for me, and then I'm just going to click escape. So now I've traced around the window. I'm going to grab push pull again, and I'm going to push this back, and it's going to slice it away. And that's that. If I was totally off, if I had like a huge gap here, that luckily I've created this edge, so I could just grab the little edge over here and then just pull it in and tuck it in so it's fitted really nicely around the window. I don't have to delete the whole thing. So that's where push-pull and resizing really comes in handy. Okay, so that's how you would create backsplash where you need to cut around something. If you don't need like different size backsplash, you could just use the wall docs cube from the catalog, but this is more for something a bit more custom. Okay, I'm going to click done again. You can simply drag and drop your textures if needed. Let's go back to what we were going to talk about. Okay, so we did our backsplash, our cabinet. Let's talk about some curved walls and a cabinet. I keep minimizing that instead of just switching over. Okay. I'm going to delete this out of the way so we have a little bit of room. Sometimes it's fun to create the cool curve, and we have the tools for that. So let's go back into create new product, and I'm going to show you a few different options. So the first is very simple. Let's draw just like a simple wall that has like a nice rounded edge. I'm going to draw out the outer frame of my wall. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and then I'm going to create that arch. So I'm going to use push-pull to give this some height. Bring it on up. You guys were on last week's webinar. I showed you how to use create new product to build the peaks of exterior of roofs for an exterior. So if you guys are curious about that, there is a webinar called Exteriors and Landscapes on our YouTube channel where I go into that in full. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. Okay. In the meantime, what we're going to do is figure out where we'd like that curve to exist, and then we're going to use point arc. And in this case, I'm going to go from 2-point arc, which will create literally this kind of half moon shape. I'm going to go to 3-point arc and turn this on. And that means I'm clicking 3 times instead of 2, basically, but it creates a slightly different effect. So I'm going to go along this edge, or rather, I'm going to go along this edge. Click once. I'm going to find my midpoint here, click again, and then I'm going to go right over here to line this up and click again. And you'll see now it's created a nice little curve. I went a little over the edge here, but for the sake of the tutorial, this works. So this becomes separate planes again, because I brought it all the way to the edge, it's cut it off. I'm going to click on these little cat ears, and I'm just going to slice it away. And there we go. Click escape. And so now if I were to click done, again, I can select this. I can make it more narrow and resize it, but it's going to resize the entire thing, right? And now I can apply texture to this. I recently did, so this is like a nice example of like a custom built room divider, which could be something that clients are looking for given the state of the world and how much we're at home and working from home. But this was an example of something that I did in a project recently where we created this nice curved effect as a custom build, and it needs to be built out like this. So there you go. Let me think of another example. So maybe like we have like a curved cabinet and needs to be going in the opposite direction. Same basic principle. We will use our rectangle tool. I'm going to start on the floor. Let's say that this is our cabinet. We're going to give it some height using push-pull. I'm going to click, bring it on up, and now I want to create an arch that goes this way rather than making it go that way, right? Or drawing it on that plane. So I'm going to grab point arc, 3-point arc. I'm going to click again, and click again. Push, pull my cat ears and slice them away. And now I have a nice little curve. Now, if I were to grab offset, which creates borders, you will notice that it's going to mimic the inside of this arch. Okay, so I could click there. I could use my pen tool to create some definition of different areas. So maybe I want to slice that in half. Maybe I want to create some doors here. I'm going to use offset again to create more trim. I can use offset here, and you'll see I have this nice half moon, right? So you can really start to define the edges. But this was super easy. I just used my 3-point arc, clicked at the center, and then brought it on down to create that nice curve, and then just push, pulled, and slice those cat ears away to create this. Alrighty. Last thing I want to show you is the follow me tool and how you would use that. So I would say, I'll be honest, this tool I use the least frequently, but it does have some applications. So I'm going to show you how to create a cove, like a curved cove ceiling. So if you ever had a situation where you wanted to create that, what the follow me tool does, which is right down here, is allows you to push full, but along a curve rather than along a straight edge. So I'm going to start on the ceiling now because I can draw on the ceiling. I'm going to click here, go all the way to the edge. All right, I'm going to use push pull to give it some steps. I'm going to just tuck in my corner here because I went too far. All right. And then this is actually a good example of just using 2-point arc rather than using 3-point arc. So when I click on this, I click here and then just drag it straight across, right? So 2-point arc, we're clicking twice, 3-point arc, we're clicking on 3 different parts. I'm going to click here. And then as I slightly move this is just going to create a little curve. There we go. And now I'm just going to use push-pull to slice away at this hard edge to expose this nice curve. So push-pull, click on that, slice it right up, make it disappear. And here is where follow me comes into play. So what I want to create is a little inlet, basically up here, so that I can place lighting around or whatnot. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use my rectangle tool. And I'm going to draw just a little rectangle here. And what this is defining and telling the software is, hey, I want this rectangle to go around that curve, but be pushed in. Does that make sense? So I'll show you what I mean. And then you could place lighting in there, okay? So create that little rectangle and then grab follow me. Click on that one. Click on the rectangle. And then we're going to click on this border here. I know I'm like a little far away. It will highlight blue if you can click there. It will highlight red if you cannot, but in this case, you definitely can. Click on this top border, and then you're going to click the escape key. And now it's created that push-pull effect all the way around this curve for a really kind of cool effect. Okay. Alrighty. The very last thing, which I forgot to mention, is the trim tool, which is just the eraser. So the only note that I have for you about this is that it only works on lines, not on geometry. What I mean by that, if you draw a line and you go a little weird with it and that's not working for you and you want to erase it, you can by clicking on trim and just double clicking on the line. And of course, now my computer has frozen. There we go. You're going to double click, it'll highlight blue for a second, and then it will disappear. It doesn't want, there we go. The only time that you can't use this is if you were to create geometry. So let's say I use push-pull. Now I've created geometry, right? It's not flat, it's not 2-dimensional, now it's 3-dimensional. I can't now use the trim tool and click on this edge and erase it because it's a whole shape, it's not just a line. So just think of the trim tool as like an eraser. But if you were to cut into a piece of paper, you couldn't fix the cut with an eraser. That makes sense. I've been talking all day, guys, so I'm not sure if the words coming out of my mouth make sense to you guys or not. Let me know in the Q&A if they don't. Alrighty, so that's the last goal, is just trim and erase. So we've gone through a little bit of everything. I'll go to the Q&A now and show you guys anything else that's popping up for you, okay? Alrighty, let me check. Cool, Rooney. Alrighty, again, there's that cheat sheet in there, okay. Melissa is asking, what if you have an angled ceiling? Would you use the pen tool versus the rectangle tool? So when you say angled ceiling, Melissa, do you mean like sloped ceilings that are coming in from the corner? Okay, so actually for that, what I would recommend is not create new products. I would recommend going into the catalog and under the broader catalog of geometric, you will find ceiling stop triangle. So type that into the search bar here. And then this guy down here is probably your best bet. It's like a right triangle. I'm gonna drag and drop it to the ceiling. And you'll see it'll tuck right in there. And now what you're gonna do is resize it across the space. So one thing that you need to keep in mind for these types of ceilings, I can click on the center and bring it on out, is make sure that you have the measurement from your floor to the beginning of this slant. And then make sure that you also have from the floor to the ceiling itself. So if this were 8 feet and then this were 5 feet, you know that this slant, when you're resizing it, needs to be 3 feet in height. And then that would be accurate for you. Okay. And then you can simply clone this and then rotate it and tuck it into this corner. And then you have like that nice kind of A-frame look. We also have a ton of ceiling designs in the catalog. You look that up here. And we have cathedral ceilings, all different kinds that you can just drag and drop to the ceiling, but they will drop down into the ceiling. So again, just make sure that you know the height from the floor to the bottom and also the floor to the very top. And you're going to make your ceiling height or your wall height in 2D mode the very tallest point. Let me think about how I'm explaining this. So if your total ceiling height to the pitch of that frame is 12 feet, your walls in 2D mode need to be set to 12 feet. And then if your wall height from the floor, let me orbit around here, to the base of here is 10 feet, then you know that this needs to be set to 2 feet tall. Does that make sense? Okay, Cheryl, is the rectangle used for creating picture frame molding? Yes, it is. So one thing that you should know, Cheryl, is that for most of our picture frames that we have in the catalog, you can custom upload your own artwork that you want to use as a custom texture, and then you can drag and drop that picture or that painting, whatever it may be, to an existing frame from the catalog. So don't give yourself work that you don't need to do. If you find a frame in the catalog that you really like and that works for you, try dragging and dropping the picture that you want to that frame. For the most part, it works. There's just a few where it might apply it to the glass as opposed to the frame, but there's only a couple like that. But yes, you would use the rectangle tool, then you would use offset, right? Give it some depth using push-pull, and then you would use offset to push in or to create the border, and then push-pull to push in to create that dimension there. If it was like a very modern kind of frame. Please show a demo on how to place spotlights evenly between them. So evenly between these guys here, you could just clarify that question. I can show you. That's going to be done in 2D mode, most likely. Melissa's saying this would be for a custom built-in, like you just demonstrated, but my client has a sloped ceiling. So would that still work? So if you're doing custom built-ins and they're going up to the slope, you could still use this tool. Absolutely. Make sure that your slopes are in place first using the triangle, and then you would build, let me see if I can show you. I'm going to drag this in and resize it and see if I can show you using this existing model. Okay, so let's say that this was just going up to the slope. Does it need to cut into the slope? I'm not quite sure that I understand. You can definitely still build this up to that point. If you needed to like slice away here, I'm going to click on modify and I'm going to unhide my environment. You could use the pen tool and draw like on a diagonal here. Create that, and then you could push, pull, and slice away this corner. Which it doesn't want to do for me right now, but you could slice this away. Does that answer your question? Oh, maybe because I have this cavity. You know what, that's what it is. It doesn't want to slice through because I already created this cavity, but I can start a new project and show you. Let me exit out of that one. Is that what you mean? Does it need to be built like at a slant around the slope? Let me know, but you should be able to, once you give push, pull, and give it some depth, you should be able to just on the side, use the pen tool to create that diagonal and then slice it away. You just want to do that before you create any cavities for shelves like I did, because it'll stop at that cavity. Birney, how do you make a recess directly in your wall, say for a niche in a shower? Okay, so Birney, we have a few niches in the catalog that will do that for you. If that doesn't work, so I think this will. So something like this, a nice simple niche. We also have a nice arched one. This is right here. You can apply textures to it. You can increase the depth, but your wall just needs to be thick enough to accommodate that. So you could change the wall thickness in 2D mode on each individual wall, which I'm sure you already know this, but for those of you who don't, by selecting this, bringing up wall properties, you can increase the thickness of each of like an individual wall to accommodate for the depth of that niche. Okay, good question. How do you draw a semicircle? Okay, let me show you. Lisa, let's go into create new product real quick. We'll build up against this wall. We're going to start with a rectangle. We're going to push pull. And then we are going to use our 2-point arc, I believe. So 2-point arc. Let's say do that. Click, click. This is going to create like a bulge or a semicircle. So I could click again, right? But I need one more line here. So I'm just going to grab my pen tool, click, and click. Now, you should be able to slice this away to just leave the semicircle that you want. Okay, so that was rectangle, push, pull, 2-point arc. Simply, I drew a straight line right across and then created the size of the curve that I wanted. And then I used pen tool to close off the top, and then I push, pulled, and sliced everything else away that I didn't want. Okay. Anonymous, spotlight evenly between each light on the ceiling. Okay, let me show you in 2D mode how I would apply lighting evenly. So go to 2D. And in this drop down here, you're going to go from floor plan mode to ceiling plan mode. what this is going to show you, I've got this slope here. Let me delete it out of the way. What this is going to show you is an aerial perspective of the ceiling rather than the floor. And now you can go into your catalog, you can find recessed lighting. We're going to drag and drop it into the space, right? And in 2D mode, you have the ruler tool. This is a tool that is going to be available in 3D mode soon. So you'll be able to use it there as well, but for the time being, ruler tool, you're going to click on it. You'll click on your recessed light and then just drag out your mouse. So I'm not holding down my left click, I'm just clicking once to the dimension or to the distance that you need these to be spaced at, and then you would select this and clone it and move it on over. And then you can place it, and this is a really nice place to make sure that everything is lined up nice and evenly. Make sure chandelier is nice and centered, because when you go into 3D mode, it's a little awkward, right, to be kind of angled up and looking at the ceiling. So definitely do it here in 2D. Ceiling plan mode and then ruler tool. Okay. Alrighty. I think that was everybody's question. I think there was just one that I was still not quite sure about with the slant, but if you're able to get back to me, Melissa, if you're still on the call, I can try and clarify that. We have just a few minutes left. Okay. How do you make an S shape? Barney, you're giving me all the, the hard stuff. Let me see if I can show you how to do that. 1 second. Oh my goodness, more questions. How do you hide the wall that extends above the low point of the sloped ceiling? I can see the wall outside through a window. How do you hide the wall that extends above the low point of the sloped ceiling? I'm trying to visualize this. I can see the wall outside through a window. So unfortunately, Todd, right now you cannot save a custom shape and use it in another project, but I think that is on the roadmap to being something that can be done. Let me go back. Kathleen, I'm so sorry. Can you clarify, or if you could take a snapshot of your screen and send it in so that I can see what you're talking about? I'd be happy to help you. Also, I will give you guys my email here in the chat, and you can always reach out to me and we can set up a time to talk and solve any specific issues. Thank you, Vanessa. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Kathleen. Okay. All right, Barney with the S shape. Conceptually, I know how to do the S shape. Have I done it? No. So thank you for giving me this challenge. Let's think it through, guys. All right. Okay, so we'll go into create new product. We're definitely going to want to use point arc. Is this for like a ceiling, Barney? I'm just gonna draw it on the ceiling. So let's do that. Let's give it some depth or some height. And let's go to point arc. Let me think about this. So if we click here and then click here, we should be able to do that, right? And then if we click on that edge and move this out, we should be able to go in the opposite direction. I didn't go quite as long, but this isn't perfect by any means. I'm just kind of thinking my way through it. I should have made this line longer so that the curve was at the same, the curves were kind of matching, but is that kind of what you're thinking, Barney? Let me know. We can do it again too. Awesome, Melissa. Okay, so Barney, just let me know if that answers your question. I drew point arc and I just moved my mouse up to create the curve one way, and then I drew another line for point arc, which should have been the same length but wasn't, and then I moved my mouse down to create that curve in the opposite direction to connect the two, okay? Lisa's asking, what would be the best way to make a curved wall from floor to ceiling, rectangle and arc tool? Yes. Is the curve going in or going out? The only difference there is just going to be, let me see if I can answer your question here. Let me exit out of this. Let's go back into create new product. All right, so the whole wall needs to be curved. I'm going to assume it's curving out, but yeah, we're going to use the rectangle tool. We're going to use push pull to bring it on up. And then we're going to look at it from this top down perspective. And we could use, you could use either, I think. You could just use this. You could use 2-point arc and do that. You could use 3-point arc and then click on the center here and then click over here, but it would have the same effect. In this particular instance, either one of these would work. So rectangle, push pull to give it some height, and then 2-point arc, click because you're coming from an edge already, and then push pull again to slice away these cat ears and create a curve. I don't know if this is what you wanted it to look like, but let me know if not. Also, guys, I'm going to add my, you're welcome, Tiana. Let's see, and then do you use the offset to make it 3D? Okay, 1 second. I'm just going to enter my email address for you guys. It's rachel@foyr.com. If you guys have more questions, if you want to sign up for a masterclass one-on-one, either with myself or one of my colleagues, it's completely free with your membership, and we can like get into your project specifically and whatever builds you want to work on. So I'm just entering that here. You guys can reach out to me because we are at the tail end of the webinar. So Birney, to make it 3D, I think you would use push pull to slice away, I think, is what you're asking. Offset is going to create borders. So I don't think that that's the tool that you want to use, but also, yeah, for the S shape, you want to just define the S specifically. I think what you would use is the point arc tool again and tuck it up. Let me see if I can show you real quick. Make sure there's no more questions here. If not, Birney, you and I can talk after the webinar. Rotating TV between 2 rooms. Okay, so many questions. These are good questions, guys. All right, Lisa's asking, I need to create a rotating TV between 2 rooms. That's so cool. What you would probably just do is, hold on. Just create a wall and create a cavity for the TV. So create new product, rectangle. Let's say these are 2 rooms. This is our wall. Rectangle tool, push pull, and then use rectangle tool again. Kind of like when you have like a fireplace that's appearing on both sides. And then you can use push pull again and just slice through it. Oh gosh. There we go. And then you could just put one of our televisions and just put it into free movement so it's floating to represent that it would rotate around. And this is obviously a very thick wall, but you could always make it skinnier. I think that's how you would do that. Okay. You're welcome. Reach out to me, guys, if I didn't get to your questions, if I didn't answer them properly, just let me know. Anana, just reach out to me via email and I'll try and give you some answers to that question about your account, okay? Alrighty, guys. Also, Birney, just shoot me an email, we'll get into it. Okay, alrighty, bye everybody. See you next time.